Welcome to Portsmouth This Week. I'm Jeff Richard. I'll be hosting our show today. This is being filmed on the 30th of November. And before we get into our, our special program for today, I'd like to announce to everyone, perhaps you can see this, our programming here, the Portsmouth This Week show, which we've been done about 26 shows. We were nominated for an award in the PEG studio system, and we achieved a certificate of achievement for Best Series. So that is pretty significant, and all our crew here are quite happy about that. Today's topic of conversation is a very vital and current issue, and that is the tolling, potential tolling, I should say, of the Sakonnet River Bridge, which is now open for traffic. A very controversial issue, particularly for those of us living on our island here. So what we've gathered the three folks to make a show here today who are all very attuned to exactly what the issues are about these tolls. And I'm going to introduce them individually, tell you where they are associated, and then we're going to start a conversation. And believe me, this 30-minute program is going to go by very, very fast. On my immediate left is Mr. John Vitt, and John is the chair of the Sakonnet River Bridge Toll Discussion Group, which is a component of our Portsmouth Business Association. On his left is Representative Dan Riley, and Dan, in his capacity as a legislator, was on the Finance Committee, still is on the Finance Committee, and he's prepared to give us an interesting background discussion on how we got there and what the legal future might be. And lastly, to Dan's left is Mr. Ray Berberick, and Ray is also on the Portsmouth Business Association, but he's also a member of the STOP organization, which, as most of you know by now, is a group of people who have gathered up together to basically fight tolling on the Sakonnet Bridge. So to get the discussion started, I'm going to ask John. There are a couple of impending meetings which have some significance to the issue of tolls. John, can you tell us what those meetings are all about?
Yes, thanks, Jeff. When the Department of Transportation decided to build a new Sakonnet River Bridge, they had submitted an environmental impact statement. It did not include an economic impact statement because when they built the new bridge, they didn't anticipate tolls. Now that they want to toll it, they have to meet the criteria of the Federal Highway Administration, and therefore on Monday night at 7 p.m. at the Portsmouth High School, and on Tuesday night, December 4th, at the Tiverton High School, representatives from the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, representatives from the Federal Highway Administration, I'm sure the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority people will be there, and this is a public meeting to determine what the public's views are on tolling the Sakonnet River Bridge. I implore everyone in Portsmouth, in Bristol, in Tiverton, on the East Bay to attend both of these meetings. The Department of Transportation, the State of Rhode Island, Governor Chafee, as well as the General Assembly, must get the message that tolling the Sakonnet River Bridge is not an option.
Mm-hmm. What time do those?
7 p.m.
Okay, and where again?
Portsmouth High School at 7 p.m. on Education Lane. Auditorium, and Tiverton High School at 7 p.m. on the 4th.
Super. The background as to how we got where we are at the moment. Dan, could you just talk a little bit about how this managed to, how did the Bridge Authority get a hold of this bridge?
Sure. So the Turnpike and Bridge Authority has always had a structural problem with its finances ever since we took the toll off of the Mount Hope Bridge, and even before that, because that toll wasn't giving us enough revenue to maintain that bridge. At the time, the thought was that the toll on the Pell Bridge would be enough to maintain both. Fast forward to now, and what you have are two aging bridges with high maintenance costs and one toll plaza to support both of them. So where the Turnpike and Bridge Authority approached this was simply from a revenue standpoint. They have increasing maintenance needs on the Pell Bridge, they have maintenance needs on the Mount Hope Bridge, and what they need is additional revenue in order to maintain their existing bridges. And if they were to take over any other bridges, they would need a revenue stream secured from one of those bridges as well. The Sakonnet River Bridge, being new, has the lowest maintenance cost of any of the four major East Bay bridges. It also has the highest daily vehicle count of any of the four East Bay bridges. So it represents, the juiciest target, if you will, for any tolling authority to want to put a toll plaza on or an electronic tolling system. The reason they got involved as a part of the governor's budget for this past year that was enacted in June was because they are the only tolling authority in the state. So the DOT essentially said, instead of us having to fund the bridge maintenance for the Sakonnet River Bridge and the Jamestown Bridge, we would transfer the ownership of those two bridges to the Turnpike and Bridge Authority, allow them to put a toll on the new Sakonnet River Bridge, and give them an additional revenue stream to fully maintain all four. Now, just a brief background of the finances on that, it's about a $12 million maintenance problem that we're looking at for the three bridges outside of the Pell Bridge, which already has its own toll plaza. So, what the DOT is looking to essentially get rid of is $12 million in maintenance costs for three bridges. And one of the difficulties in assessing the impact of the tolling proposal now is that we don't know what the tolling rate would be. So we don't know how much revenue they're actually looking to bring in, but we do know that if it were set at the toll rate of the Pell Bridge with the vehicle count of the Sakonnet River Bridge, we'd be looking at revenues well in excess of $40 million. So there's a significant disparity there that still has to be resolved. But as far as how we got to where we are now with the Turnpike and Bridge Authority being involved, that's their principal concern. They want additional revenue for the bridges they maintain.
Okay. Ray, I understand that the Portsmouth Business Association voted unanimously to oppose tolling the bridge. What was the basis of that discussion that led to that vote?
The impact that a toll would have. It's just applying common sense and sitting down and doing an assessment as a business owner, brick and mortar, or even if you're run your business out of your house but still have to make trips to sustain your business, that first of all, as an individual, you're going to have to pay a toll. Secondly, if a toll goes in, it's not likely going to attract new people or more people. It's going to deter them. So now you have less customers. So that affects your bottom line. Second thing. The third thing is that if you have a business where there are vendors, they are going to have to pay the toll, and they're going to push the costs back onto you. So just you as a business owner that it is involved with the bridge, a toll is going to have a triple negative effect on you as a person and a business owner. And that's just not good for business. If a toll attracted people and tourists and commuters, then we'd be all for it. But we all know that's not the case.
The other business communities in Tiverton and Bristol, to be specific, are they also on board with the Portsmouth group?
Yes, there's actually the organization called STOP, which is Sakonnet Toll's Opposition Platform. It has 15 members of a number of groups from the area. There's the Portsmouth Concerned Citizens, the Little Compton Taxpayers Association, the Tiverton Concerned Citizens, Portsmouth Business Association, the Common Fence Point Improvement Association, East Bay Patriots, and more, all have representatives and are a combined membership of all of those organizations representing several thousand people. And we meet regularly in order to discuss strategy and float ideas on the best way to let the legislator know and to come up with ideas and how to find other funding to eliminate the toll.
So is that group going to be speaking publicly in the next Monday and Tuesday meetings?
Oh, there will be lots of people speaking Monday and Tuesday night, yes.
Okay, so you're organized in other words.
Absolutely.
Ask Representative Riley, if what would a couple of options be that are being explored in terms of the governor's authority and the legislators in the Bridge Authority? What can they do?
In terms of stopping the proposal?
Or not tolling at all? Do
Sure.
we have to toll? And
Sure. So the budget simply authorized a transfer. So there was no money budgeted in revenue from a proposed toll on the bridge. So in terms of removing the proposal or saying let's start afresh and think about a new revenue stream aside from tolls, it's very easy. Legally, it's very easy. The governor, by his administrative authority vested in the budget, can simply say we're not going to go through with the transfer. As I said earlier, we're talking about a $12 million problem. DOT would estimate between $9 and $12 million between the Jamestown Bridge, the Mount Hope Bridge, and the Sakonnet River Bridge. We have a budget as a state of $8 billion. We spend several $100 million in transportation every year, and Newport County has 20% of the state's bridge deck, and that's including the Pell Bridge. We have less than 10% of the highway and bridge maintenance budget devoted to those bridges. So there's already an inequity present. The director of the DOT would tell you that if we don't have tolls on these bridges, that next year these bridges will be 10% of his budget. And I tell him, well, they're 20% of your bridges, so how is that a bad thing? So there's definitely better budgeting that can take place in the state level. That being said, there is absolutely a revenue problem when it comes to transportation in this state, whether that's revenue that's not being allocated properly in our existing revenue stream, or if it's new revenue that the DOT needs. We're facing a funding shortfall in excess of $300 million a year of transportation projects statewide. So it's obvious that there's a structural problem here that will not be solved even if they put a toll on this bridge. And the governor has not solved that. The DOT has not solved that. We have much bigger problems that lay ahead. Revenue that we don't spend on transportation now includes all of our vehicle registration and license fees. That's $42 million a year that we collect for our cars and for our driver's licenses that goes straight into the general fund. Not a dollar of that goes to DOT's budget.
Gas tax? How about gas tax?
The gas tax is mostly devoted to DOT, with a portion that goes to RIPTA and a very small portion that goes to the underground storage tanks. But the problem with the gas tax is it's a diminishing revenue source. I mean, we face intense competition with our neighboring states. People are driving less now. It's putting pressure on our gas tax revenue like all states are facing, the federal government's facing with the Highway Trust Fund. So we need to give the DOT a better revenue source than just relying on the gas tax, which they can't really raise, because if we raise it, our per penny yield, or for every percentage point we go up, we're actually going to decrease our yield. There are a lot of problems with that. I think it's about time we start devoting more revenue from other sources within our budget to transportation. It's just too vital a need.
More than half the DOT budget is to debt service. And he'll probably explain that Monday night.
Yeah, okay. John, the side of it that deals from the Portsmouth Business Association, could you expand a little bit about how the cost transfer, it seems like it's a regional tax situation. If we're unique here, so it seems to me it's a regional tax. But from the businessman's point of view, where do you stand to lose?
The Business Association in Portsmouth has 110 members. This year we'll celebrate our 20th year as the Portsmouth Business Association. The 110 members of the Portsmouth Business Association have employees. All right, Clements Market, Newport Tent, Hodges Badge. There's almost 400 employees just there, and a number of the employees live on the other side of the bridge. So a number of the employees live in Massachusetts. They wouldn't qualify for an easy pass. Long story short, we see the expense of doing business on Aquidneck Island, specifically in Portsmouth, going up. We see employees defecting. Why pay a $4 toll if they can get a job somewhere else? So between the employees potentially leaving the island, the expense of the toll, we don't see it as a positive economic benefit for the Portsmouth Business Association and the membership of the Portsmouth Business Association. I might want to add to what Dan said also, and Ray talked about it. The state of Rhode Island has underfunded the Department of Transportation for 30 years. This is what we're doing now. They're trying to play catch up, but they're trying to play catch up on the East Bay. All right, from that $90 million a year that we get in the gasoline tax, $50 million I think is going to the debt service and the bonds that we're paying off because we've borrowed from the future so many years. One of the things that Governor Chafee told Ray and I at the meeting we had last Tuesday was this was the first year that the Department of Transportation did not go out for a Garvey grant, a grant anticipation loan to fund the DOT. And they're very excited about that. And that's a good thing because we're starting to turn the corner.
Can you tell the audience and me also, what is a Garvey grant?
It's borrowing from the future. The Federal Highway Administration lets us put in an application to borrow from future federal highway funds. So from the $90 million that we're collecting in gasoline tax, I believe it's $50 million that is going back to the feds every year. So we're coming up very short.
We have to, in order to receive the federal funds, we have to provide a state match. And so the problem in Rhode Island is that we've been borrowing to meet that match. We do not pay. This will be the first year we're actually paying as we go.
So the long story short is, from a business perspective, this will hurt businesses on both sides of the bridge. This will hurt businesses in Tiverton, this will hurt businesses in Portsmouth, employees, and also it will potentially hurt businesses in Bristol from the standpoint that people in Somerset and Swansea that don't need a Rhode Island Easy Pass, why are they going to come across the Sakonnet River Bridge? They'll be going through Bristol and Warren, and that's not going to be good for Bristol and Warren with respect to the traffic.
Yeah, those roads are incredibly busy out there.
But the Business Association, Jeff, to be quite frank, we've discussed this numerous times, and we've looked at some of the alternatives that the Department of Transportation could examine. And it's up to the General Assembly, it's up to the Governor, it's up to DOT to examine any and all alternatives as opposed to tolling the bridge.
To expand on what your question and what John said is that tourism is the second largest industry in the state, and there's on the Newport County Convention and Visitors Bureau website, buried in a couple of links, you can find a 2010 Global Tourism Report, and in there it says that $711 million are spent by tourists and people who live within a 50-mile radius in Newport County in 2010. $711 million. Then there's a bunch of other factoids, and you can crunch the numbers many different ways. But there is going to be a loss of state tax revenue if you put a toll in, because you're not going to attract more, you're going to attract less. And shouldn't someone at the state level have done a cost-benefit analysis using economic surveys well before creating Section 20 of Chapter 24? And it seems to be like a ready, fire, aim approach, which is making the voters angry.
Yeah, so we do not have an economic impact study in hand.
No.
Do we know of one being developed?
Yes.
Yes, the Department of Transportation has contracted with Commonwealth Engineering, who has subcontracted with Parsons Brinkerhoff, and there's a gentleman named Alan Hodges, who is the point man who sent out a survey. Now, this is also a concern of ours. Initially, he was only going to survey 33 people.
People, not businesses.
Well,
people.
People, combination people, businesses. 3 in Portsmouth.
Oh.
4 in Tiverton, 26 in Middletown and Newport. That was the extent of it. But because we had gotten wind of it earlier, one of the first persons that was contacted called us, and we got a hold of the Director of Business Development in town, Bill Clark. We have since proliferated that study out to a couple of hundred businesses on both sides of the bridge.
Very, very good. Do we have any sense of when that would be completed?
I would expect that on Monday night, when Director Lewis gives his presentation, and I've seen the presentation before, and it's a rather compelling presentation. If it's the bucket presentation that he uses, the blue, the green, and the yellow buckets, it spells out where the Department of Transportation is economically. Now, Monday night is so important that people show up. And I recommend that for parking issues, if you can carpool with your neighbor, if you can walk to the high school, this way we could fit as many people in there. I'd like to see the parking lot. I'd like to see the parking lot full. I'd like to see people standing out in the parking lot waiting to get in. And please, very important, bring something in writing with your name, your address, your telephone number, and email address, because not only will you be able to get up to a podium and speak to the Director of Transportation, but you'll be able to submit a comment in writing. This is very important from the Federal Highway Administration standpoint, because the reason that the Department of Transportation has to do these 2 meetings is to meet the guidelines of the Federal Highway Administration in the public hearing process. Yep. So bring something in writing.
So if somebody doesn't get a chance to actually get to the microphone, if they've got a letter addressed to
Yes.
Absolutely.
DEM?
Yes. Yeah, DOT.
DOT.
Right.
Just to DOT from me, dated with my address so that they know that it's really me.
Perfect.
If I don't get a chance to speak at the microphone, I can leave this in an appropriate spot, and that will accumulate. So that's really what you want. Right?
And members of the Portsmouth Business Association will be on hand. We're going to bring a bunch of pads and some pens that if you didn't bring something, we'll pass it around, because we want as much as and we're also going to be, we have our own video team that's going to be videotaping the event on Monday night.
Okay.
All right, but it's important to write it down as well.
Do you know who moderates this event?
Director Lewis is going to be doing the moderation.
Okay. Hopefully that'll work.
I think Director Lewis might stand, and I've said this before, I think he might be better off if he stood up and just said, how many people in the audience are here supporting the toll? Okay, because I don't think he's going to see many people there supporting the toll.
Drop a pin and that would be it.
This is a bad decision. This is a decision that is going to play out over the next, if they are successful, and I don't think they're going to be successful. I believe, as I believe, that first of all, it's a proposed toll. It is not in concrete. I understand the governor can change his mind. I know that the new state legislature could change their mind. They can repeal it. I understand that Representative Edwards and Senator Artiano will both introduce bills to repeal the transfer of the bridge toll in January, February. This can be done. This does not have to go on the Sakonnet River Bridge. We've discussed other options with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. Why aren't they tolling the Washington Bridge? Why aren't they tolling the Highway Bridge? Okay, it's my understanding from the Federal Highway Administration they can only toll bridges. They cannot toll the road. And I'm not into the Federal Highway Administration's policy and procedures, but the bottom line is, you know, if the Department of Transportation gets away with tolling the Sakonnet River Bridge, what bridge is next?
I would just add the difficulty with that is the state is restricted by the federal government to tolling non-federal highways.
That's correct.
So our highways with the greatest volume in the state, 195, 95, and 295 are off limits. So the Highway project, the new Pawtucket River Bridge, South County down in Richmond where the Welcome Center used to be, we can't put tolls up there. We applied for an exception to the federal program that was given last year, and North Carolina beat us to it. They took the slot we were aiming for, which was the last one. So we can't toll the busiest thoroughfares in the state. But I would just point out that, I mean, that also shows how unfair this proposal is, because all of those projects that were undertaken, namely the highway, but also the 403 connector in North Kingstown, were paid for out of the same bond issue that paid for the new Sakonnet River Bridge, yet we're the ones being asked to pay for it. Now, that bond issue has been serviced since we issued it, so we already have money budgeted to support the 2003-2005 bond issues. Okay, so this toll is not needed to build that bridge. That bridge was not built secured by this toll revenue. It was non-existent at the time. The state said they didn't need it. That bond issue paid for projects all throughout the state. It contributed to the debt load DOT's been facing. But nonetheless, we're now being asked to help to relieve the DOT from that statewide debt load on the backs of Newport County residents and business owners and those who visit Newport County alone. No other part of the state's being asked to, even parts of the state with state roads, even if the volume isn't as high, 146, Route 4, Route 1 in South County, they're not being asked to contribute by putting tolls on their highways. We're the only ones being asked to do this.
One of the ideas that we put forward, just some very simple math. I mean, your living room discussion, the state budget's $8.1 billion. 1/2 of 1% of that is $40 million. If the finance committees in the General Assembly just gave every department in the state a 0.5% haircut, you could generate $40 million, which would be more than enough to cover the maintenance of the 4 big bridges, whether RITPA is involved or not.
Have we ever discovered exactly what the community of interest to put tolls on there? Where is that buried? Who really wants tolls on this?
I think the DOT wants as much revenue, and understandably so, wants as much revenue from as many different diverse revenue sources as possible. I think in Governor Chafee they found a receptive leader, receptive person who runs their department, who appoints their heads, and they went to him with a proposal much like the Department of Revenue went to him with the proposal for the sales tax modernization. Very unpopular and a proposal that was defeated. But it was defeated because it had statewide impact, and people around the state were able to rally against it. Nonetheless, the DOT wants revenue from as many different sources as possible. I've spoken with Director Lewis on many occasions, and he's articulated to me that the DOT does not have a particular love affair with tolls. It's the only proposal that's been put forward for them at this time. If the governor decided tomorrow he wanted to dedicate 100% of vehicle registration revenues to the DOT, he could have embarked on that in the budget. He could have proposed that initiative, and the DOT would have absolutely supported that in lieu of the tolls. They simply need the revenue. They do not care how they get it. All they know is that their budget now does not do the trick, and it doesn't come anywhere close to doing the trick for them. So they went to the governor with this proposal. We have a new bridge going up. Politically, they made the argument, well, it's a new bridge. We can put a toll now or never. They made that argument to the governor, and he said, let's do it. It's a great idea. And up to this point, he hasn't showed any willingness to consider alternative ideas. And mind you, when Governor Kacheri had his Blue Ribbon panel back in 2006 to 2008, studying transportation financing in Rhode Island, they discussed tolls, but partly because there were so few roads that we could actually toll because of those federal restrictions, they gave us a whole range of policy proposals, ranging from a hike in registration fees to dedicating registration fees, reallocating money out of the current budget, paying down our debt more aggressively to free up cash flow. There were a lot of different proposals they had.
The one reason why STOP has such a big following is that, if you sat down and looked at your cable bill, there is a state tax line
Absolutely.
item. Your electric bill, your cell phone bill.
Yep.
We go to the restaurant, there's a tax for state. Your licenses, your gasoline, it never stops. The status quo is not working. It's time to change the status quo. And Amy Stowe said it
We love
very
Amy
well
Stowe.
on
Hello,
August
Amy.
23rd. Is that it's not an income problem, it's a spending problem. And
Just for those who might not know, who is Amy Stone?
She was in the audience at the governor's, when the
Small
already-
Business Forum, August
right.
23rd at Town Hall,
That
which
got
was
hijacked.
supposed to be how Rhode Island has help for small businesses became,
Oh, yes.
it was the other direction.
And Amy said, she said,
But she's absolutely right.
it's not a spending. it's
And the
not a-
taxpayers are tired, and it's time to change the status quo.
True enough. Well, we're down to a couple of minutes here. Representative Riley, what do you see as three potential legislative solutions that might happen out of this?
Well, if the governor doesn't simply say no to the proposal, and I don't know what the chances of that happening right now. Legally, it's very easy. I don't know what he wants to do with that. Legislatively, it happened through the change in the law. It can be fixed through a change in the law. I have, absolute faith in Representative Edwards and Senator Arellano in introducing legislation at the very beginning. In fact, they'll both probably pre-file legislation. So if it's not done now, within the next few weeks, it'll probably be done. We have to rally support behind getting the change in law. We have the President of the Senate representing Newport and Jamestown, and she allowed this proposal to go through. So we have to put pressure on her to change her mind, to tell her that this proposal would not result in increased tolls on the Pell Bridge, that we have to help the Turnpike and Bridge Authority in relieving them from having to pay for two bridges with the tolls on one, and the state can do that. We do not have to increase tolls on the Pell Bridge, but at the same time, we don't have to put tolls on the Sakonnet River Bridge. I think there were misconceptions that a lot of legislators used in the East Bay as their excuse to vote for this proposal. Simply not true. The numbers don't explain that, but I think that's what they used. We have to correct those misconceptions. And then we have to get public support from Newport County rallied around the change in law like we did with the sales tax proposal. We beat that back, we can beat this back.
Okay. We're down to the last couple of minutes. Ray, any final thoughts?
As John had said earlier, this is one of the very few public times that will be available for the public to come and speak their mind to the Director of Transportation and other officials in attendance Monday night at Portsmouth and Tuesday night in Tiverton. This is your chance to have your voice heard publicly, and as Jeff, as you said earlier, there's always the letter writing campaign. And to back up what Dan said, that we've got to let the folks up in Providence know that this is a bad idea. It's going to cause voter outrage that will reflect in the future elections. It's bad for the economy, and it's about government spending out of control.
Okay. John, any final thoughts?
Director Lewis indicated to me the $164 million cost of the new Sakonnet River Bridge translated to a 1% maintenance fee. So Director Lewis wants $1.6 million per year to start putting into a kitty to start maintaining the new Sakonnet River Bridge. That's what this thing should be about, $1.6 million.
Okay.
We need to find $1.6 million, and I hope everybody shows up on Monday night, and I hope everybody shows up on Tuesday night and voices their concern.
Great. This is the end of our program for today. I'd like to thank John Vett and Representative Dan Riley and Ray Burbrick. Been a very enlightening show, and thank you for watching.